Hi everybody! Today's story we're going to do is Cinderella. Now, this Cinderella story is similar to the one that you might know, um, but there's a little bit different as well. So it'd be nice to see what the original Cinderella sounded like and was like. Remember, at the end of the story, there's going to be a shout out, but just a big thank you to Phoebe and to Violet, who both really got excited about my stories so far, and they've sent me some lovely videos saying thank you. So thank you for watching. But today, let's get on with Cinderella and let's see if there are any similarities or differences. This story is a little bit longer, so if you want to stop it halfway through and come back to it later, please do. But I'll have a go at reading it all at once because it's good fun. Okay, so the Brothers Grimm, Cinderella. The wife of a rich man fell sick, and as she felt that her end was drawing near, she called her only daughter to her bedside and she said, "Dear child, be good and pious, and then the good God will always protect you, and I will look down on you from heaven and be near you." Then she closed her eyes and departed. Every day the maiden went out to her mother's grave and wept, and she remained pious and good. When winter came and snow spread a white sheet over the grave, and when the spring had drawn in, taken it off again, and her father had already taken a new wife. His wife, the woman, had brought two daughters into the house with her who were beautiful and fair of face, but vile and black of heart. I don't know if you might know anybody who's really pretty or really handsome, but it's just not a very nice person. At least we can change that, can't you? Now, began a bad time for the poor stepchild. "Is the stupid goose to sit in the parlour with us?" they said. "Oh, who wants to eat bread must earn it. Out with the kitchen wench." They took her pretty clothes away from her and put an old grey bedgown on her and gave her wooden shoes. "You look at the proud princess, how decked out she is," they cried and laughed, and led her into the kitchen. There she had to work hard from morning till night, get up before daybreak, carry water, light fires, cook and wash. Beside this, the sisters did their everything unimaginable to injure her. They mocked her, emptied her peas and lentils into the ashes, so that she was forced to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, when she had worked till she was weary, and she had no bed to go to, but she had to sleep by the fireside in the ashes. And since, on that account, she always looked dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella, Cinderella. It happened that the father was once going to be going to the fair, and he asked his two stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. "Beautiful dresses," said one. "Pearls and jewels," said the second. "And you, Cinderella," he said, "what will you have?" "Father, break off for me the first branch which knocks against your hat on your way home." So he bought the beautiful dresses and pearls and jewels for his two stepdaughters, and on his way home, as he was riding through a green thicket, a hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his hat. Then he broke off a branch and took it with him. When he reached home, he gave his stepdaughters the things that they'd wished for. And to Cinderella, he gave her the branch from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave and planted it, and then she wept, and the tears fell down on it and watered it. And it grew, however, and became a handsome tree. Thrice a day, 3 times a day, Cinderella went and sat beneath it and wept and prayed. And a little white bird always came on the tree, and if Cinderella expressed a wish, the bird threw down to her what she'd wished for. It happened, however, that the king appointed a festival which was to last 3 days, and to which all beautiful young girls in the country were invited in order that his son might choose himself a bride. When the two stepsisters heard that they too were to appear among the number, they were delighted, called Cinderella and said, "Comb our hair for us, brush our shoes, fasten our buckles, for we are going to the festival at the king's palace." Cinderella obeyed but wept, because she too would have liked to go with them to the dance, and begged her stepmother to allow her to do so. "You go, Cinderella?" she said. "You are dusty and dirty, and would go to the festival. You have no clothes and shoes, and yet you would dance." As, however, Cinderella went on asking the stepmother, at last she said, "I have emptied a dish of lentils into the ashes for you. If you have picked them out again in 2 hours, you shall go with us." The maiden went through the back door into the garden and called, "You tame pigeons and you turtles and all you birds beneath the sky, come and help me pick the good into the pot, the bad into the crop." Then 2 white pigeons came in by the window, and afterwards the turtle doves, and at last all the birds beneath the sky came whirring in, and crowding in, and alighted amongst the ashes. And the pigeons nodded with their heads and began to pick, 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 and the rest also began to pick, 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 and gathered all the good grains into the dish. Hardly had 1 hour passed before they had finished, and they all flew back out again. Then the girl took the dish to the stepmother and was glad, and believed that now she'd be allowed to go with them to the festival. But the stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have no clothes and you cannot dance. You would only be laughed at." As Cinderella wept at this, the stepmother said, "Okay, if you can pick 2 dishes of lentils out of the ashes for me in 1 hour, then you shall go with us." She thought to herself, that she most certainly cannot do. When the stepmother had emptied 2 dishes of lentils among the ashes, and the maiden went through the back door into the garden, she cried, "You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds under the heaven, come and help me pick the good into the pot and the bad into the crop." When then 2 white pigeons came in the window, and afterwards the turtle doves, and at length all the birds beneath the sky came roaring in and crowding in and alighting among the ashes. And the doves nodded with their heads and began to pick, 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 pick. And the others began also to pick, 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 and gathered all the good seeds into the dishes. Before even half an hour was over, they'd already finished, and they all flew back out again. The maiden carried the dishes to the stepmother and was delighted with herself, and believed that she might now be able to go with them to the festival. But the stepmother said, "Oh, this will not help you. You cannot go with us, for you have no clothes and you cannot dance, and we would be ashamed of you." With this, she turned her back on Cinderella and hurried away with her 2 proud daughters. Well, she's not very nice, she's telling lies. As no one was now in the home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree, and she cried, "Shiver and quiver, little tree, silver and gold throw down on me." Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress down on her, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver, and she put the dress on with all speed and went to the festival. Her stepsisters her stepsisters and stepmother, however, did not know her, and thought she must be a foreign princess, for she looked so beautiful in that golden dress. They never once thought of Cinderella, and believed that she was sitting at home in the dirt picking lentils out of the ashes. The prince went to meet her, took her by the hand and danced with her. He would dance with no other maiden, and never let go of her hand. And if anyone else came to invite her, he said, "This is my partner. On your bike." I don't think he said that. Sling your rock. She danced till it was evening, and then she wanted to go home. But the king's son said, "I will go with you and bear you company," for he wished to see to whom the beautiful maiden belonged. She escaped from him, however, and sprang into a pigeon house. The king's son waited until her father came, and then he told him about the strange maid and that she'd led him to a pigeon house. The old man thought, "That might be Cinderella he's talking about." No. And they had to bring him an axe and a pickaxe that he might hew the pigeon house to pieces, but no one was inside it. And when they got home, Cinderella was in her dirty clothes among the ashes, and a dim little oil light was burning on the mantelpiece. For Cinderella had jumped quickly from the back of the pigeon house and run to the little hazel tree, where she'd taken off her beautiful clothes and laid them on the ground. And the bird had taken them away, and then she had placed herself in the kitchen amongst the ashes in her grey gown. Next day, when the festival began afresh, and her parents and the stepsisters had gone once more, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, silver and gold throw down on me." Then the bird threw down a even more beautiful dress than the preceding day. And when Cinderella appeared at the festival in this dress, everyone was astonished by their beauty. The king's son had waited until she came and instantly took her by the hand and danced with no one but her. When others came and invited her, he said, "She's my partner." Sling your hook. When evening came, she wished to leave. The king's son followed her and wanted to see into which house she went. But she sprang away from him and into the garden behind the house. There stood a beautiful tall tree on which hung the most magnificent pears. She clambered so nimbly between the branches like a squirrel that the king's son did not know where she had gone. He waited until her father came and said to him, "The strange maiden that escaped from me, and I believe she's climbed up there in the pear tree." And the father thought, "Will that be Cinderella?" No. And had an axe brought and cut the tree down, but no one was on it. And when they got into the kitchen, Cinderella lay there amongst the ashes as usual, for she jumped down on the other side of the tree, had taken a beautiful dress to the bird on the little hazel tree, and put on her grey gown. Now, on the third day, when the parents and sisters had gone away, Cinderella went once more to her mother's grave and said to the little tree, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, gold and silver throw down on me." And now the bird threw down to her a dress which was even more splendid and magnificent than any she had yet had, and the slippers were golden, not glass, golden. And when she went to the festival in the dress, no one knew how to speak for astonishment. The king's son danced with her only, and if anyone invited her to dance, he'd say, "She is my partner." Sling your hook. When evening came, Cinderella wished to leave. The king's son was anxious to go with her, but she escaped with him so quickly that he couldn't follow her. The king's son had, however, used a clever stratagem and had caused the whole staircase to be smeared with pitch, and there, when she ran down, had the maiden's left slipper, which remained sticking. So he made the stairs sticky to trap her shoe. The king's son picked it up. It was small and dainty and all golden. Next morning he brought it to the father and said to him, "No one shall be my wife but whose foot fits this golden slipper." Then the two sisters were glad, for they had really pretty feet. The eldest went with the shoe into a room and wanted to try it on, and her mother stood by, but she couldn't get a big toe into it. The shoe was too small for her. Then the mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut off your toe when you're queen. You won't need to go on foot anymore." The maiden cut her toe off, oh dear, and forced the foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the king's son. Then he took her on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. It is not a good idea to cut off your toes. It really isn't. They were, however, obliged to pass the grave, and there on a hazel tree sat two pigeons. And these pigeons said, turn and peep, there's blood within the shoe. The shoe is too small for her. The true bride waits for you. Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was streaming from it. He turned his horse round, took the false bride home again, and said she was not the true one, and that the other sister was to put the shoe on. Then this one went into her chamber, got her toes safely into the shoe, but her heel was too large. Oh dear, what happened next? So her mother gave her a knife, oh dear, and said, cut a bit off your heel. When you're queen, you'll have no more need to go on foot. The maiden cut a bit off her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the king's son. Oh dear. He took her on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. But when they passed by the hazel tree, the two pigeons sat on it, cried, turn and peep, there's blood within her shoe. The shoe, it is too small for her. The true bride waits for you. He looked down at her foot and saw that there was blood running out of her shoe, and how it had stained her white stocking. Then he turned his horse right round and took that false bride right back home again. This is also not the right one, he said. Have you no other daughter? No, said the man. There is still a little stunted kitchen wench which my late wife left behind, but she can't possibly be the bride. Well, that's not a very nice way to talk about his daughter, is it? Huh. The king's son said that he was to send her up to him, but the mother answered, oh no, she is much too dirty, she can't show herself. He absolutely insisted on it, and Cinderella had to be called. She first washed her hands and cleaned her face, and then she went and bowed down before the king's son, who gave her that golden shoe. Well, we know what's going to happen, don't we? Then she seated herself on a stool, drew her foot out of her heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper, which fitted like a glove, or even like a really comfy slipper, I suppose. And when she rose up and the king's son looked at her face, he recognised this beautiful maiden straight away that he danced with, and he said, this is my true bride. The stepmother and the two sisters were terrified and became pale with rage. He, however, took Cinderella on his horse and rode away with her. And as they passed by that hazel tree, the two white doves cried, turn and peep, no blood is in the shoe. The shoe is not too small for her. The true bride rides with you. And when they had cried that, the two came flying down and placed themselves on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and one on the left, and remained sitting there. Now, when the wedding with the king's son was celebrated, the two false sisters came and wanted to get into favour with Cinderella and share her good fortune. When the betrothed couple went to church, the eldest sister was on her right side and the youngest was on the left, and the pigeons pecked out one each of their eyes. Oh dear. Afterwards, as they came back, the elder was on the left and the younger was on the right, and the pigeons pecked out the other eyes. And thus, for their wickedness and falsehood, they were punished with blindness for as long as they lived. Well, that's not very good, is it? It's all a little bit brutal. Lots of blood in that story. Anyway, that Cinderella was a little bit different. But my shout out today is for a little girl called Annie. Annie's mum, Lisa, says that Annie absolutely loves to read stories and that she's been listening to the stories and that she's a very, very clever and very, very beautiful girl. And I'm sure that she's kind and lovely like Cinderella, not like those two wicked stepsisters. Anyway, thank you for watching, Annie, and I'll see you next time. Bye.